First things first, I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm Lauren, I'm the executive chef and owner of Elle Cuisine. We are a catering company in Toronto, and we have been sort of, discombobulated because of everything going on with COVID. We've had to pivot a couple times now. We got back into events when stage 3 reopened, and now we're right back to really promoting our Elle Market, which is our home delivery service where we do like meal packs for your household, and we are doing a lot of virtual events. We've been doing virtual events with Toronto Life for almost 6 months now. I think we were the first to do a virtual event and cooking class, and that was so much fun. We did the beef Wellington, here I am, still doing it and loving it. So thank you again for coming. Selby residents and Toronto Life insiders. We've got a big group today. We are 40 people. And so I ask that you guys, if you have any questions, want me to slow down, if you're having any problems, whoops, that's my team dropping stuff in the background. But if you're having any difficulties with one of your recipe stages or steps, just jump into the chat, let me know. One of my ladies who is helping is going to give me a shout out and make sure that I pause and I can help you through whatever challenge you're having, okay? All right, if you guys are good to go, I'm gonna raise a glass and cheers to you guys. Now we're gonna jump around, okay? First, we're gonna start with our pumpkin pie, and that's just so that it has enough time to set and chill before we put the whipped cream on it. So we're gonna start with dessert. So I'm gonna grab my ingredients that were in my pumpkin pie box. All right, so I've got my pie shell here, and we made this pie dough for you. My pastry chef made this pie dough for you. So it's homemade. There is the recipe in your little recipe pamphlet, but because I want to make sure you guys can eat around 8 p.m. and not be stuck here with me until 9 or 10, we did a few steps to just get you guys ahead, one of which was making pie dough. Pie dough is one of those things that is very easy on paper to make, but actually very difficult to make. And that's just because if you overwork the flour, it's game over. If you add too much liquid, it's game over. If the butter gets too warm, it's game over. So we've been nice and we got that going for you. Now, if you have a little bit of flour, now's the time to get that out and just dust your cutting board with flour. Okay. So I'm just gonna dust the bottom of my cutting board with flour. Yes, if you have a glass pie dish, it is better than using the aluminum one. Absolutely. I need you to read the comments because they're already commented, okay? All right. Someone has to always be sitting there? Okay. So I've got this pastry roller. If you don't have a roller, you can use a bottle of wine. You can use a bottle of vinegar. You can even use a can of beer. Anything that's cylindrical, just dust it with flour and start rolling. Now, the key here is to roll not in one direction because we're essentially trying to create a circle. The only way to create a circle when we start with something square is to just roll outwards and shift like 25 degrees with your rolling pin every time you roll. I'm rolling from the center out. And by the way, I'm not a pastry chef, so my pie crust is not going to be as perfect as it would be if Emmy was doing it, but it's going to be tasty. So we want to get it so that it's just big enough to fit. And one of my tricks is just checking just like that. I'm going to make it about an inch wider or bigger in circumference than my pie plate. Oh yeah. This is what I mean by the pamphlet. It's got all your recipes. There's one in each box so that you can keep these recipes with you and do them again this weekend. Also, you can just keep them for life because they're great recipes to have on hand. Okay. So I think mine's big enough. I'm going to go for it now. So the way that we do this in the kitchen, if you want to look at my cutting board, if you want to highlight and pin the cutting board screen, to get it into the pie plate without breaking the pie crust, what we do is this. Fold it over once, fold it over again. Now you've only got a quarter of a pie tin. Now you're going to want the point of your triangle to just be in the middle center of your pie plate. And then you just unwrap it. Done. Beauty. So now I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to make sure that it's in every little corner. Beauty. Okay. Now's the time where you can get fancy with the edge or you can just cut and crimp with a fork. I am going to cut and crimp with a fork. I think that's what you all should do too. And so I've got a fork right here. And if you have scissors, scissors work really well, or a nice sharp knife. I'm going to use my boning knife. Yeah, we can do it that way too if you can't pin that. Oh. I'm just going to cut along the edge. So Kim, what do you need to be able to pin? Okay, great, awesome. Kim's working with me on the other side. She can now pin different angles. You've got to turn the sound on your computer off. Okay, so I'm going to keep this extra pie crust, okay? Because I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We're going to make little fun leaves that we're going to garnish with. Okay, so I've got my pie plate. I'm going to use my fork along the edges, but I'm going to use my finger on the bottom. Okay, great. Okay, so that's done. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to put this in, oh no, I'm going to still use my fork and I'm going to press the bottom. Just like that. And that's just so it doesn't bubble up when we bake it. I'm going to put this in the fridge or freezer really, really quickly, just so it sets, because the colder the butter, when we bake this crust, the flakier it will be. I'm going to pin myself. There we go. Perfect. So I'm going to run to the freezer right now. I'll be right back. All right, so now I'm going to show you how to make the fun decorative pieces that we're going to decorate our pie with at the end. Okay, so take a piece, take a few of the bigger pieces that you have left, and take a paring knife or a boning knife that has like a very small tip, okay? Now, I'm going to ask you to, there you go, you did it already before I asked. Perfect, thank you, Kim. Okay, so I'm gonna now create some autumn leaves with my knife. And I'm gonna do that by just essentially doing this in the shape of a leaf. So for me, that looks like a leaf. How do I make that look like more of a leaf? I'll show it to you in my hand. I'm gonna take my knife and I'm just gonna press halfway down. I don't wanna actually cut through it. And then just like that. And I'm gonna show you a close-up in just 1 second. Can you guys see that? So make 3, 4, 5 of those. You can make them different sizes. You can make them different shapes. If you have cookie cutters, even better. But this is where we get fancy. We're hating on the leaves, eh? All right. So I've got 3. I'm just going to make 2 smaller ones so I have like different sizes to play with. And one more. Beauty. Okay, now we can discard of this. We don't need it anymore. And I'm gonna grab a small sheet tray, so like a cookie baking sheet. And I'm going to bake these leaves now so that they're nice and ready when our pie comes out of the oven. So just lay them out on a piece of parchment, or if you have a non-stick baking tray, that works too. All right. And now I'm just gonna grab some whipping cream and a brush, although you don't actually need a brush. You can use your finger, so I'll use my finger. And I'm just going to put some cream on the outside because that's going to help it shine. It'll get nice and glossy from that. You can also use an egg yolk. But we have this in our kit, so why not use it? All right, there's number 2. Okay, perfect. Done. So these are going to go in the oven, and I'm going to make my pumpkin pie filling next. Okie dokie. Oh, that's a very good question. So we're doing 350, always for pies, you do 350, and we're gonna leave that in. I put a timer for 10 minutes. 10 minutes should be good for you guys too. It might take 15 for you. I'm using convection, like heavy duty commercial grade ovens, so my stuff's gonna bake a little bit faster. For those of you who have the turkey roulades in the fours, because there was an option to do a kit for 4 people instead of 2. I just want to make sure that you guys have that out at room temperature. All of your turkey roulades should be sitting at room temperature at this moment. That's because we want to put that turkey roulade in the oven at room temp. It'll cook more evenly instead of having like a dry outside and a raw inside. Okay. So next, I'm gonna put my pumpkin pie filling, which is just the pumpkin puree first, into a bowl. Next, I'm going to do my eggs. It calls for, let's just make sure I'm correct. Yeah, 3 eggs at room temperature. So you're gonna crack these into the pumpkin puree. And you're then gonna do brown sugar. And we've measured this all out for you for ease. Next, I'm doing my pumpkin spice blend, okay? This is a blend of ginger, allspice, clove, cinnamon.
Sorry, how many eggs again?
And I'm gonna whisk this all together till it's nice and smooth. Awesome. Next, I'm gonna add the 1/2 cup of whipping cream. So that's the smaller bit of whipping cream. You have 2 containers. It's the one with less in it. Okay, that's 1/2 cup. I'm gonna whisk this all together. I'm gonna really put my arm into it because I'm kind of whipping the cream as I do this, which will give us a really nice fluffy pie filling. Now, you always want to add a pinch of salt to everything and anything, even desserts, in my opinion. So I'm just going to do that now to the filling. Sorry? What comes before brown sugar? We did the eggs, brown sugar, and pumpkin puree in the bowl. Whisked that together. Then we added the whipping cream and the spices. Whisked it together and added a pinch of salt. I'm now going to taste the filling. Lovely. It's nicely seasoned. I'm glad I added the salt. It needed it. And I'm just going to set that on the corner of my cutting board while I get the rest of my components out for assembling my pie. So we have pecan ginger layer. And that is, if you're allergic to nuts, do not use this bit. But this adds a layer of crunch. So we're using, these are ginger snap cookies that we just kind of blended up for you guys to make a crumb. And these are the pecans. We're gonna use both of these as we layer in the pan, or pie plate rather. Sorry? Right. Okie dokie. So now we're gonna grab our pie plate and we're going to assemble our pie and throw it in the oven. Alrighty, so here's my pie plate. It's nicely chilled. It's not perfect. Yours doesn't need to be either. How hard should you throw it? I mean, if you want to throw your pie before it's baked, go for it. Okay, so my pastry chef just told me in my ear that she already did this step for you, okay, guys? I do not want you to use your pecans. The pecans in the small little 2-ounce cup, those are actually for your butternut squash. This is a pecan ginger snap blend. She already did that step for you, okay? So this is ginger snaps, pecans, toasted and blended together. We're gonna throw this in the bottom of our pie shell and just evenly spread it out. Just like that. Now I'm just gonna pour my pumpkin pie filling in. Now, if you have a little bit too much, that's okay. You don't need to put it all in. You definitely don't want it to run over. So I have probably about like 3 tablespoons too much, but that's just fine. I can set that aside and make mini pies later. And so this is what you should be left with. And so I'm going to put mine in the oven. But I'm gonna put mine on a sheet tray and then in the oven, just because these, you know, tin pie plates are kind of flimsy and I don't trust myself to walk to the oven and then back without. So I'm grabbing a sheet tray or a cookie tray. I'm gonna lift this, place it down, and now I'm gonna carry this to my oven, and that's perfect timing because my 10-minute timer just went off for my little leaves. All right, so my leaves, they look really pretty, but they're not quite browned yet. So I'm gonna put them back in for another 5-10 minutes, okay? The pie's gonna take 30 to 45 minutes. So put a timer for 30, but I will keep you guys checking on it. Temp for the pie is 350. All right, so I'm now going to shed myself of this dirty cutting board and I'm gonna move on. We've gotta get started on all of our sides for our turkey dinner. You might be covered in flour like me, but that's okay, just wipe it off. And of course, it's time to take another sip of wine. A use for your Apple Watch. Good, good. I feel like there's a lot of uses for the Apple Watch. Counts your steps, tells you when you're stressed. Okay, so you guys will notice there are still 2 items that were left in your pumpkin pie recipe ingredients. This is the whipped cream ingredients. We're gonna deal with this later, like sooner to the time that we are ready to eat the pie, okay? Just set it aside. All right, so now we have to start multitasking again. we're going to get our cranberry sauce going. We're going to get our mashed potatoes going. We're then gonna get our stuffing going, and finally our green beans. While you guys are doing a lot of that, I'm going to show you how to make a turkey roulade. Now, we also have the Hasselback squash, yes. Put the cream in the fridge. You can whip it from room temp, but whipping cream does whip easier when it's cold. Also, it's better to use a cold bowl as a result. Great question. So where was I? Oh yes, all the sides. We're gonna get started on all the sides, and then I'm gonna start multitasking. I'm gonna have a bunch of sides going behind me, and I'm gonna show you guys how to make the turkey roulade, and I'm gonna talk you through how we did the turkey confit. The reason that we're not doing the turkey roulade together is just time constraints. Again, it really would have taken you guys, I think it took me 6 hours to roll all of yours. And so it would take you guys at least, 30 to 45 minutes just to do the turkey roulade. And I wanna make sure that you guys have the recipe on hand so that you know how to make it. So I'm gonna show you how. To get started though, we're gonna start with our sides. So I would like to first work on my cranberry sauce and my mashed potatoes. Those are the two things that are gonna take the longest on the stovetop. So first, we're just gonna get our cranberry sauce going in a really small pot because we're not making a lot. So here are my ingredients. I've got my brown sugar. I've got my fresh cranberries. I have my red wine and honey. And then I have my orange and my sprig of rosemary. I also have my mini pot. You want a small pot for this. You definitely, like the size of Trump's hands, correct? You definitely want a small pot for this because if you have too wide of a surface on the bottom, it's not going to simmer, it's just going to saute. All right. I'm throwing my cranberries in the pot. See, I'm not even happy with how small this pot is. I want an even smaller one. So I'm transferring to this little mini guy. For those of you home cooks, which you all should be, you should have very mini pots, just like this one. So that's perfect. It can fill the pot at least halfway. Now I'm going to add all of my honey. And just so you guys know, I don't know if you guys are conscious or sensitive to it, but all of these little containers are compostable, okay? So they can go into your green bin. It really hurts that we have to use all of these little containers because I am fairly conscious of sustainability. That said, we've been investing heavily in eco-friendly versions. So this just goes in your green bin and it decomposes with all of your green bin waste. Okay, so the honey's in there. I'm now gonna add my red wine. Now I'm only gonna start with half of my red wine. So pour half of it in, no more than half. I'm also gonna add my brown sugar, but again, I'm only gonna add half. This is how I cook. I don't cook with exact recipes. You never know how sweet your orange is gonna be. You don't know if the cranberries are gonna be super bitter and sour or a little bit sweet and bitter. And so I like to be careful with sugar. And then from a wine perspective, I want to keep some of that wine just in case this over reduces so that I can add more wine to it later. And it's all just about that kind of journey of getting this cranberry sauce to where I want it to be. So I'm going to stir that together a little bit. I'm going to grab my rosemary sprig. I'm just going to break this in half and put half of it in there. I'm going to take my orange and I'm going to zest some of it into my pot. Now, I know you could use a zester like a microplane, go for it, or you can just take a sharp knife and cut a piece of zest or two off, just like that. Now, you do not want the white pith part. Yes. Yes, the lids do as well. So I'm gonna go with my knife and just take off the white bit. Just be careful. Don't cut yourself at this stage if this is what you've done. The white bit is just a little bit bitter, so you don't really want it in your cranberry sauce because you've already got bitter cranberries, but best not to cut yourself, so don't get bold. I'm gonna throw these into my pot. So my pot looks like that, pretty simple, straightforward. I'm gonna put this on a medium to low heat till it comes to a simmer, and then low and slow for the cranberry sauce. All right. Oh, I forgot a step. Totally forgot a step. The next step after using the peel of the orange is cutting it in half and squeezing half of the orange into the pot, okay? I'm gonna do that over the stove. Awesome, okay. I'm gonna set aside the rest of my rosemary. I might wanna use it later. I'm gonna get rid of everything else. And there we go. That's our cranberry sauce. We will touch it and taste it later, and we might adjust, but as of right now, that's all we gotta do. Okay, next thing is our mash. First things first, I'm going to ask Kim to please fill a pot with water. The temperature for the cranberry on the stove should be a medium heat now, and then once it comes to a simmer, we're gonna give it a stir and turn it all the way down. Oh, you've got some water for me? Can you just fill a pot for me? There's a pot that's a little bit bigger than this one. Great, okay. So here are my ingredients for my mash. I've got my whipping cream, I've got my butter, I've got my chives, and then I have my roasted garlic. We roasted this garlic for you. That said, easy to do at home. You would just take the whole bulb, that's the word I was looking for, the whole bulb of garlic, throw it in an oven, and just roast it for 350 degrees for about 15 to 30 minutes, and you'll end up with lovely roasted garlic. So we have to peel our 4 potatoes, or our 2 pounds of potatoes. Thank you so much, Kim. I like this kind of peeler. That's my favorite, so I'm just gonna peel. Yeah. It will thicken. Pretty much. No, not true. But when you're baking things, like yes, 350 is like the golden rule. You could ask my pastry chefs, like they hardly ever bake anything that's not between 325 and 375. When we're roasting things in the oven, like when we get to the squash, we're gonna do the squash at 400. The turkey, I like to roast at 300, low and slow. Sorry? The lemon is for your green beans. So we're not quite there yet. Next up, the next thing we're gonna work on after this is gonna be putting our turkey roulade in the oven. just because we're at 7:15 right now, and it's gonna take at least 30 to 45 minutes to cook the roulade, depending on the size that you have. So if you are one of the Toronto Life Insiders that has a 4-person roulade, I would suggest that as soon as you're done your peeling your potatoes, that you take it out of the backpack bag, put it on a sheet tray, and get it in the oven at 350 with your pie. If you aren't eating all of this food tonight and you want to save some of it for another night, let me know, because I can talk you through how you would keep everything and put everything in your fridge. Okay, so I've peeled my 4 potatoes. Yes. Yeah, straight onto the sheet pan for your turkey. Make sure that it's skin side up, just so that the skin bastes the turkey as it roasts. You can line it with parchment, or you can put it straight on the sheet tray. You can also use a roasting pan if you prefer, in which case, again, same answer. You can use parchment if you want to, but you don't really need to. I don't see it sticking. All right. So I'm now going to cut my pieces of potato. That's the timer for my little leaves, so I'm going to go grab them out of the oven. All right, look at those. They're perfect. Okay, they puffed up really nicely. That means we have a nice pie crust here. So I'm happy with those. I'm going to set these aside for when we garnish our pie. Yeah. So there's a different answer for if, say you are only 2 people tonight, I would say that you have a roulade and you have turkey confit, which comes from the leg. We've done both for you. The turkey roulade, though, is not cooked yet. I just stuffed it and rolled it and trussed it. So I would say that if you don't think you can eat all of this food, save one of those 2 proteins for another night, because you've got about 3 to 4 pounds total of protein, which is a lot for 2 people. So yeah, I would definitely put one aside. So either choose the roulade or choose the confit, depending on your preference for tonight. Put the other one back in the fridge and save it for another night. And then you can watch how we cook it tonight, or you can read your recipe and cook it another night. You will have more than enough mashed potatoes. And so when we finish the mashed potatoes, I'm going to show you how to put them in a casserole dish or in a Tupperware container so that they can be easily reheated. Same goes for the stuffing, the butternut squash, the green beans. All right, so sometimes that happens. I'm not trying to hide this from you guys. It means the potato has just gotten, it's just started to like rot from the inside out. So I'm just going to cut it off. Nothing too scary. Okay, great. So I'm gonna put these potatoes now in my pot of water. I'm gonna salt my water. And the key here is just making sure that your pieces of potato are as consistently sized as possible, because you don't want some cooking before others are finished. You don't want a waterlogged potato and you don't want an undercooked potato. Waterlogged potatoes means you'll have a very runny mash. And also that means it'll be overcooked. Okay, so there we go. There's my pot. I'm gonna add a generous amount of salt, like you would pasta water. And I'm gonna put this on high heat. All right, 1 second, I just need to sneeze. Okay, sorry about that, bless me. So I'm now going to stir my cranberry sauce because all of the ingredients are now coming to the center. Give it a little stir. Get all of those ingredients like submerged. Give that liquid a little taste. Nice, I can tell that's gonna be good. All right, so next up, we're gonna work on our Hasselback butternut squash. Now, first we need to peel this guy. I'm gonna do that just like this. Some of your potatoes also have aliens inside. Sorry about that, guys. There's no way of knowing till you open them sometimes. May be in a bad batch. That's okay. I hope you still have enough. All right. You can use Yukon Gold potatoes. You can use russet potatoes. You can use a white potato. You definitely don't want to use a really waxy potato. And so that means you don't want to use a young potato. So baby potatoes will not mash well. The turkey roulade should be in the oven at this stage, okay? Did we have any extra roulades? Can you grab me one? I'm gonna show them how to do it. I'll show you actually how to make the roulade in a minute, but I also have a roulade like you guys have, and I'll show you guys how to put it in the oven. So I've got my little mini sheet tray again. Thank you. Here's my roulade. I'm gonna open it up. The roulade should be in the oven. There's no exact time, but I'm gonna say probably about 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm just gonna put mine like that. I'm gonna sprinkle a little salt on the top. I'm gonna grab a little bit of butter. And I'm just gonna put some knobs of butter on top. Okay. Do you not have more than one rack? Can they fit together on a rack? They can be side by side. They won't, hurt one another. Anyways, I'm gonna put mine in. Most people should put theirs in, just so that we have enough time to let it rest and enjoy and plate our food, okay? If you have a nice piece of skin, you don't need to do the butter right away. The bigger ones, we start butter basting later on. The smaller ones, we butter baste right away. That's because we don't want the butter to burn. So what will happen is the butter will melt, and then if it's in the oven for too long, it will start to burn on the bottom of the tray. So we will get to the butter on the bigger one when we take it out to check it in about 10 minutes. Okay, turkeys. Neil, I'm glad you were able to find room in your oven for the turkey. All right, so my cranberry sauce is nicely simmering. If yours came to a boil, and you should have turned it down by now so that it's nicely simmering like mine. My mash is coming to a boil. I've got it on high, and I'm just starting to work on my Hasselback. I've also put my turkey roulette in the oven already so that it's nice and ready by 8 o'clock so that we can plate our food by 8:15. That's the goal. Maybe dessert by 8:30. Okay. Like I said, you always need wine when you cook. Do not judge, just love it. Okay, I'm gonna take my sharp knife again. And before I do that, actually, I'm gonna go back one step. I'm gonna use a spoon just to carve out all of this, all of the seeds and the inside of the squash. Kind of like when you're doing pumpkins at Halloween, just scrape it all out. There we go. Then put it down on your cutting board. You discard of this. We don't need it anymore. And we're now gonna take our squash. I'm gonna move this. Oh, you're there, perfect. Good job, Kim. I'm now going to take my knife, and it needs to be sharp, and I'm gonna try to go all the way down, leaving about a ½ centimeter. Okay, so I'm not going all the way down. I'm going almost all the way down. If you go all the way down, it's game over, okay? Don't do that. Look at the photo in your recipe, which is right here. And you'll see what I mean by Hasselback squash, and you'll see why I'm saying don't go all the way. So this photo right here. The turkey confit, you do not need to put in the oven. I'm gonna show you guys how to do that one later on, okay? That one's fully cooked for you. We've confit that for you. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna finish it or plate it, which means we're gonna actually just throw it into a cast iron or nonstick pan, get it nice and crispy on the outside because it's so tender on the inside. That's actually very, very true. That's a very good tip. I don't have chopsticks, but that's a really good tip. Do you know where we have chopsticks here? No? We have them somewhere. We order sushi sometimes. It's okay. But that's a very good trick. So I'm going to start cutting. The confit is already cooked, yes. Yes. The confit can be stored in the fridge for a week to 2 weeks because it has been backpacked with the duck fat that we confited in. That said, it also freezes incredibly well because it was submerged in fat. And so if you wanted to freeze it, you can. Or if you want to keep it for this weekend, go for it. It should last. 1 to 2 weeks, yes. Ideally 1, but it should be fine after 2 because it is in its own fat. All right, so my potatoes are now boiling behind me, and I have a beautiful Hasselback squash. Correct. You can also use a cast iron pan. You can also use the oven. You can also use a non-stick pan. I'm gonna turn my mash down now to a medium heat. I just need it to simmer. I'm gonna grab a sheet tray for my butternut squash. We're gonna need to roast this. So you might wanna put this on the same tray as your turkey. All right, so to get my squash going, I have my squash ingredients. I have my roasted butternut squash butter. I have my maple syrup. I have my thyme, and I have my sage. So in a pot, I'm going to combine all of these ingredients. Sorry? So the squash comes with maple syrup, thyme, sage, and butter. Again, if you guys just have your recipes as well, everything has been very detailed and labeled for you. So really what you need to do is you need to make sure that as you're unpacking your box, you are putting everything with its family of ingredients, okay? And so the squash ingredients need to live with the squash ingredients just so that we keep our pace. So I'm also gonna add, so I've added my thyme, my sage, my maple syrup, and my butter to the pot. I'm gonna melt this very quickly, and then I'm gonna spoon it over my squash. Selby residents, are we having a good time so far? Woohoo! Okay, good. Brooke's really on it, by the way. Brooke, mad respect. You're very much a chef, aren't you? Oh. Okay. So I've got my roasting pan. I'm gonna put my squash in. I've got my maple syrup, butter, and herbs. Nicely melting on my stovetop. So that's what I have now. Now I'm gonna just grab it like this. I'm gonna start pouring this lovely mix over top. I'm only gonna use half of it for now. Probably the pie. The pie is probably almost there. So let's go check the pie. And as we check the pie, we're gonna put the squash in, okay? I'm now just garnishing. My potatoes are really going wild. I'm garnishing with a little bit of salt and pepper, okay? Great. So that's what my squash looks like. I'm gonna put it in while I take my pie out. What are we looking for when we check on the pie? Well, we are looking for it to have risen. So it should dome and rise because of the eggs. It'll fall after, but that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a dome top. So mine is looking quite nice. It's sort of risen and then fallen already a little bit in the center. If you shake it and it's not jiggly, it's good. If you touch the top and it feels firm, it's good. So I'm gonna set this aside and let it cool. Great. Okay, so my squash is in the oven. My mash is going. I've got my cranberry sauce going, which I'm actually gonna give another little stir. No. If it jiggles, keep it in the oven. You want to keep it in the oven until it doesn't jiggle at all. Okay. We're going to start with our stuffing next. Now, for your stuffing ingredients, we have croutons, the diced onion, the butter, we have chicken broth, we have celery, and we have carrots. We also have some fresh herbs. All right, so I'm gonna open these all up. I'm gonna get half of my butter into a pot. Again, another small pot. We've already diced this up for you guys so that you don't have to. Now, you can use any bread to make a French bread stuffing. I like to use baguette, so you have baguette. We've already toasted and dried this bread out for you. But essentially what you would do is you would just cut it into pieces and then dry it out overnight or put it in the oven at about 300 degrees and toast it. We've toasted it with some herbs and some butter. So we did that for you. That was one stage that step that we did for you to buy us some more time. Okay. So I've got my next pot going. It's the closest one to you. Like I said, I'm gonna take half of the butter, which half of this is 1 full cup of butter. I'm taking half a cup. And I'm throwing it in the pot, letting it melt. Then I'm gonna add my onions, my carrots, my celery, along with a generous amount of salt, which will help those veg sweat. And then my herbs, which will obviously give them a tremendous amount of flavor. I'm first gonna let my butter melt though in the pot. And my cranberry sauce is raging. I'm just turning it down a little bit. My butter is nicely melting, so I'm gonna throw in my onions first. I'm gonna add a generous amount of salt to my onions. So like a generous pinch is what I call it. I'm gonna use a wooden spoon to stir. I'm now going to heat through my stock. If you guys have microwaves, just throw it in the microwave for about 1.5 minutes. If you don't have a microwave, you can do it on the stovetop like I am, but I'm also trying to be wary and aware of the fact that you guys probably only have small 4-burner range tops. Alrighty. I'm gonna have another sip of wine because it's time and I have 1 minute to rest and wait. Only use half the butter to start with. We're gonna use some more of the butter as little knobs on top. I'll show you that in a minute. Keep in mind too, our potatoes are gonna be done soon, so we're gonna be getting those going real quickly in about the next 5-10 minutes. My cranberry sauce has turned this like lovely dark color. It's starting to get a little bit jammy, but it's still quite liquidy. I am gonna give that liquid a little taste. Really nice. It does not need the extra sugar, and it doesn't need the extra wine as of yet. If you guys can see over in my pot with my onions, they've started to simmer. And so once those are simmering, we can start to add our other veg. So we're gonna go carrots next. Then we're gonna go celery. And you'll start to understand why we gave so much butter. So with your stuffing ingredients, you got 1 full cup of butter, okay? Or half a pound, which is 1 full cup. I cut it in half because I wanted to start with only half. The other half we will use, but later on. So So I'm just keeping it on my cutting board for later. The onions are and celery and carrots are, yes, they are stewing in the butter right now with a generous amount or a generous pinch of salt. I know. I was about to say, it's too many to count. I highly recommend not counting. I will also totally throw my prep chef under the bus right now, which is like not a thing you do. I shouldn't do it. But I'm going to. Your recipes call for half a pound, okay? He's not here right now, throwing him under the bus. Your recipes call for half a pound, or half a cup. French bread stuffing, half a cup. Potatoes, what did we say for the potatoes? A half a cup. Okay. When we say half a cup, this is half a cup. He gave you guys half a pound, which is actually 1 full cup. So you don't need to use all the butter. We will use most of the butter because it just means you have an extra half cup. But yes, totally calling him out. Bad form. My timer's going off, so I'm going to go grab it. But yeah, to be totally transparent, your recipe called for half a cup, not half a pound. You got half a pound, which is why it seems like you have a lot of butter for 2 people. My mirepoix right now is on high heat because it's in a pot. It's not burning. I want to cook it as quickly as I can. I'm just gonna stir it and watch it. But because it's got all that butter, it's not gonna burn. Butter has milk solids in it, and so it won't burn right away. Okay, not like if it was oil. So I've got my squash out, guys. It's nowhere near ready yet. Probably gonna take another 15 minutes. But what I wanna do, I'm gonna take my parchment paper off because it's not helping me baste this. I'm gonna baste my squash. So I'm gonna take all this extra butter in the corner and I'm just gonna start pouring it on top. Make sure it gets into all of those little cavities. Yes, it is. Mine's starting to smell really good too. Now I'm gonna grab the other half of my butter and I'm gonna really start to get it in there as well. All right, so now's the time. We're gonna just cover it in butter and maple syrup. We joke in my kitchen because we say, what's the secret ingredient at Elle Cuisine? Usually the answer is butter or wine. 2 of my favorite things, butter and wine. Yes, mine is too. So now that our pie is out of the oven, I cranked my oven to 425. Turn your heat up to 425. That will cook your butternut squash and your turkey at the temp that is required at this moment. My turkey roulade is getting very close. I can tell because when I touch the outside, it's quite firm. How many of you guys have a meat thermometer versus not? I probably assume most of you do not have one. I don't even have one at home. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna know it's ready by touching it, like we would a steak. So as it firms up and it has less give, you're gonna just like grab the outside of the turkey. You're gonna like take it out and just pinch it. I'll show you. But I'm not gonna show you before I stir my mirepoix because it is starting to brown. And now I've turned my mirepoix to a medium heat, medium-low heat, okay? I'm gonna go grab my roulade and show you how to check. All right, so here's my roulade. Now, it doesn't have any color yet, so it's looking a little bit sad. You know, we want it to be like nice and golden brown, but it's also not there yet. So how do I check to see if it's ready? So I'm touching this side here and this side here. Feels quite firm. I'm then gonna take two of my fingers, and yes, I'm a chef, so like I have calluses on my fingers, but you can do this very quickly without hurting yourself. Just go like that, just like squeeze it. If it's firm and it doesn't like give at all, then it might be ready. Mine's giving and it's not pushing back too much, but it is pushing back a little bit. I'm feeling some resistance, which means I think this is gonna be ready in the next 10 minutes. I'm gonna put it back in at this higher temp with my squash so that it gets nice and golden brown. And now would be the time for those of you who have the bigger ones.
What temperature should it be inside?
What temperature should it be inside? The inside should be 150, 155.
Thank you.
What's yours at now?
Haven't checked yet.
Okay, let me know when you do. I'd be curious to know. I can just tell by feel that mine's probably around 140, 145. So again, maybe another 10 minutes. So there is no difference in the temp that you want the inside. You're always gonna want poultry at about 155. It'll carry over to 160. So that's the thing you need to understand. It's gonna keep cooking as it rests. So you wanna take it out between 150 and 155 with 160 being the goal. Now, the one that's bigger is gonna take twice as long to cook. So ours is ready now. Yours is gonna need another 15, 20 minutes. It's at 140 now. Perfect. Did I not just call that? 140. Yes. I'm good at what I do. No? Maybe? We'll see. Thank you, Neil. Do you mind grabbing me another glass of wine? It's in the freezer. Okay. So my mirepoix is nicely sweated out, and I can tell my mash is almost ready to be processed. Okay, I'm going to show you how I can tell my potatoes are ready. Here's my potato. My knife goes all the way through it easily, okay? So that's ready to go. That's it. I'm gonna leave it in there until I'm done the stuffing. Nothing bad is gonna happen to it in the next 3 to 5 minutes. All right, my stuffing veg is looking pretty good. I'm now gonna taste it to make sure I'm happy with the seasoning. Yeah, I'm gonna add a little pepper. And now I'm gonna add my herbs. So this little thing full of herbs. Throw it in. But like it's perfectly tender. So I don't want it to be overly tender, but I want to bite down and for it to be soft. I just don't want it to have no bite to it. right, my stock is warm. I'm gonna turn it off. And I'm now gonna show you how to assemble the steaks. So I've got my bowl with my croutons or my stuffing bread. Sorry? The butter should have already been in the, so the half of the butter should have already been in the pot with your mirepoix. Andy and Sam, did you already do that? Did you saute your veg with butter? I did. And then I added the herbs. So this is my lovely mix. Oh yes, on the roulade, absolutely. If you've taken it out and you're touching it, now is the perfect time to top with butter and some herbs if you have any left. I'm now gonna throw my mirepoix in with my bread. I'm gonna toss this together. And this is like literally the most classic French bread stuffing that you could possibly make. It's not complicated, it's not fancy. We're not adding like cranberries or corn or pumpkin. I like it basic. I want it to taste like my childhood. For me, that's what Thanksgiving is all about. Okay, so I mixed that together. The bread already soaking up a lot of the moisture that came out of the vegetables. Now we grab our 2.5 cups of stock or half liter. It has to be hot or warm. So I heated mine in a pot. If you didn't, do it in the microwave. That's fine too. I'm just gonna pour it over. Beauty. And I'm going to toss this once, and then I'm gonna let it sit. So you know that the vegetables are ready to mix with the bread if they become translucent. So they will change from opaque to translucent. That's your first tell. The second tell is taste them. Number one recommendation from a chef is taste your food as you go. Don't wait till the end. Making delicious food is all about layering flavor. So the more you taste, the more you can adjust, and the better your food will be. Sorry? Yes. I know it seems like a lot of broth, like why are we adding broth to bread, like to get it wet, but that's the whole point of stuffing. We want that dry bread to soak up all of that lovely stock. And this is our homemade chicken broth, so it's gonna be delish. Then we just wanna mix a couple times more. You can see the bread is soaking it up. It's very soggy now. That's good, that's what we want. So now I'm gonna grab my roasting pan. I'm gonna use a disposable roasting pan just because here at the kitchen we actually don't have small roasting pans, and this is a recipe for 2 to 4 people. And I'm now gonna pour it in. And press it down. No. It needs to be in its own casserole dish. If you don't have a casserole dish, you can use a pot or a pan, rather. So something like this would also work, guys, if you need to use it, so long as this will go in the oven, which most do. But you want like an oven-safe casserole dish for this. So now is when I use the rest or a little bit more of my butter. So I'm gonna cut some of it off. Mine is still simmering. It's looking lovely. Thank you for that flag. Let's check it out. Ooh. I mean, you want to give everything that you have on the stovetop a little stir every couple minutes, every sort of 10 to 15. My cranberry sauce is starting to look really good. I'd say our cranberry sauce is pretty much done. This one? Oh, this one. Sorry. So this is the texture. So it's kind of jammy. So that means it's pretty much ready. So I'm going to turn the heat off. I'm going to taste it one more time. You know what it's missing? It's missing a pinch of salt. So I'm going to add a pinch of salt. I'm also going to remove the orange zest now. And I'm also going to remove the rosemary. So now we have a lovely cranberry sauce. So next up is just putting little knobs of butter on top of my stuffing. Perfect. So if it looks like that, it's ready to go in. Yes, it's a lot of butter for 2 people to consume, but worth it. Exactly. So that's the best question I've gotten all night. So you're gonna do the stuffing ahead of time and then leave it like how I just had it. Now would be the time to not put it in the oven if you want to save it, or make that ahead of time to that point and then just bake it. So I just put that in my 400-degree oven to bake for about 15 minutes, and then it's ready to serve. So you can actually do all of that prep ahead of time, leave it in your fridge, and then just pop it in a 400-degree oven. If you're taking it from completely cold, it's going to take 30 minutes and not 15, but that would be what you want to do with that. With your potatoes, on the other hand, your mash, I will show you that once we're done making the mash, you do the same thing. You just put it into a roasting pan or a casserole dish, and then you just leave it in your fridge, and you can heat it up at 350, 400 degrees right before you're ready to serve for 15 to 30 minutes. As well, the butternut squash, you can get all the way to the point of just needing to reheat it. So we'll take it out and then I'll show you. You can just wrap that up and keep it for another day. But for now, we need to strain these potatoes because we don't want them to get waterlogged. That's right. Alrighty. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's what happens sometimes. That's really shitty. Okay. So here's my mashed potatoes. I just destroyed my cutting board with soot from this one burner, but that's okay. Thank you. All right, so here's my mash. I have strained my potatoes, and now I'm gonna add butter, obviously. So I'm adding half a cup first. You've got half a pound. I'm gonna start with half a cup. Now, if you have a potato masher, now would be the time to use it. All right, had to reorganize. I hate when I'm messy. Okay. So now I'm gonna actually use a whisk. I use a whisk. You can use a ricer, you can use a food mill, you can use a masher. I'm gonna use a whisk to mash my potato with the butter. Yes, it is. So I'm gonna take mine out in about 1 minute. Is yours looking nice and brown on top? If it is, take it out now. Mine I had set for 1 more minute. I'm gonna go take a look. It's lovely, it's nice and firm and golden brown, okay? So when I go like this, there's no give anymore. That's my timer. Now I'm also checking on my squash, which is getting quite nice. I've turned the oven up, remember, to 400, which is roasting my squash nicer than the 350 was. I'm gonna baste it 1 more time now that I'm in the oven. Beauty. Alrighty, back to our mash. You definitely want to get this all done while it's nice and hot. Then we're going to start to put together our dinner. All right, you don't want to overmix your potatoes, so be careful not to. I'm going to add a little bit of whipping cream. And this like up and down sort of twirling motion helps to not overmix the potatoes. They look nice and fluffy. I'm gonna give them a quick taste. Lovely. Needs a little bit of salt on my end. I'm gonna add my chives and my roasted garlic. And then I'm gonna call it a day with the mashed potatoes. The beans we're gonna do as we do the à la minute plate when we're ready to finish the meal. So what we're gonna do next is we've got our Hasselback squash in the oven. We have our stuffing in the oven. We have our cranberry sauce, which is finished. We have our turkey that we've taken out of the oven. The bigger turkey should be ready in the next 5-10 minutes also because we put it in earlier. We're gonna get, as our final two things, we're gonna do our turkey confit and our green beans. That said, before we do that, we're just going to make our pie pretty, okay? So here is my mash. I'm gonna give it one last taste. I'm very happy with that. I love mashed potatoes. I'm gonna put it back on my stovetop. I'm gonna cover it so that it doesn't get cold. And I'm now gonna move on to my green beans and my turkey confit. Alrighty, so for the green beans, you guys have a pack of green beans, a lemon, more butter, believe it or not, and chives. Have those ready to go, but we're just gonna deal with our pie first, just so that you guys can see how to make it pretty and plate it. So here's my pie. Do you mind just shifting the view down a bit? Thank you. I've got my whipped cream, which I'm gonna pour into a bowl. I need a whisk. Do you mind grabbing me a whisk, Kim? Oh, great, thank you. And I've got my sugar that I'm gonna add to my cream. And I'm just gonna start whipping. Woo, it's hard work. But I'm starting to see ribbons, so I know I'm getting there. There you go. So you start to see ribbons as you do it, and that means you're real close. You don't want to over whip. Correct. All right, so it's at a soft peak right now. I'm gonna whip it a few more times. And now it's at a nice hard peak. It's not gonna fall off my whisk. We are good to go on that. I'm gonna grab my little leaves now. And I'm gonna decorate. I'm gonna do along the edge here. Just like that. There we go. So that's what mine looks like now. I'm gonna add the whipping cream only once I've cut a nice piece. So there's my pie. Here's my whipping cream. I've got that part done, ready to eat. I have my stuffing and my butternut squash in the oven, which is great. I'm gonna show you guys now how to do the beans and the confit, and then we're gonna bring it all together. Before I do that, I'm gonna grab the ½ liter of turkey gravy that we prepped for you guys, and I'm just gonna start heating that through. Alrighty. So I'm gonna grab a non-stick pan. I'm also gonna grab a non-stick saute pan. I'm gonna put about a cup of water in my non-stick saute pan. I'm also gonna put in my beans. So I'm just gonna make sure that they're nicely evenly spread. I'm gonna do a pinch of salt so that they're seasoned, and I'm gonna put this on the stovetop. All right, so my beans, essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to blanch beans in the same pan. Okay, I'll put that there. What the water will do is it's gonna blanch the beans really quickly, and then I'm gonna hit it with some butter, and it's gonna create this emulsification that essentially glazes the beans, okay? So next, I'm going to get my turkey confit. And in the meantime, I'm going to plate my cranberry sauce in a nice little ramekin. Beautiful. So my turkey confit is here. For those of you who are 4, this is what it would look like. So I've got this beautiful meat in here. Here's the whole drumstick that you guys got. I don't need that much because it's just me and Kim, so I'm not going to use all of it. But this is a lovely drumstick. So I'm going to just use these little bits. If you have the drumstick, do the same thing that I'm doing with that. So I've got my nonstick pan. I'm going to heat it up. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan. I'm going to wait for it to get hot, and once it gets hot, I'm going to put my turkey confit in the pan. While I wait for it to get hot, I'm going to have another sip of wine. And I'm just starting to plate like my whipped cream and my cranberry sauce so everything looks pretty when it's time to eat. All right, my pan is nice and hot. How can I tell? If I put my hand about 5 centimeters from the actual surface of the pan, and I can keep it there for longer than 10 seconds, it's not hot enough. If it's too hot to keep there, it's hot enough. So it's hot enough because I can't keep it there. Comfortably anyways. So I'm gonna put my turkey confit in the pan and I'm gonna start to sear it. Now my gravy is ready. So I'm gonna put it in a gravy boat. And I'm gonna take a fork and I'm just going to start to break this up a little bit. Sorry? I didn't cut mine. I just used a fork and broke it up a little bit. Sorry? My butternut has not come out of the oven. How is yours, guys? How is your butternut squash doing? Mine, I just want to keep in there for as long as possible because the softer the squash, the sweeter the squash. So I'm going to leave that in until my stuffing is also out. And everything's coming out in the next sort of 5-10 minutes, guys. It's time to eat. So what you'll see is it starts to get lovely and golden brown. And that is exactly what we want. We want some of those crispy bits. Now my beans are looking really good. Nice. I'm going to check them for doneness. They're still a bit hard. So I'm going to let them go another minute. I'm now going to take my turkey roulade and I'm going to take it apart. The whipping cream should be a soft peak. So I'm going to show you mine again. This is my whipping cream. So I could flip it upside down and it's not coming out, okay? So it's like a soft peak. I'm going to turn off my confit. I'm really happy with the color and it's totally heated through. I've got my gravy here. I'm now going to take the tress off of my roulade and I'm going to carve it. My beans are pretty much ready for me to add the butter, chives, and lemon zest. But first I'm just going to finish my turkey. So I'm going to slice it about 1/2 centimeter thickness. Oh, it's perfect. Look at that doneness. Can you make it so that they can see my face now? The amount of butter for the green beans is already pre-measured for you. And if you're pretty much where I am at with the green beans, which is that I have maybe a millimeter or two of water left. Now's the time to add your butter. So I'm grabbing my half pound of butter. I'm gonna add some knobs. I'm gonna add my chives. And I'm gonna remove it from the heat. And now is when I'm just gonna toss. Now, if you can't toss like that, you can use tongs. Just like that. And you've got some beautifully glazed beans. I'm gonna taste. Happy? I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. As well as a little bit of lemon zest now. Do you mind grabbing me a zester? Okay. Alrighty. Zester, lemon, finishing touch. Here we go. I only used half my lemon, okay, guys? All right, I'm very excited about everything that's happening right now. I'm gonna give this one last toss. One last taste. It's perfect. So I'm gonna plate my food now. So where am I gonna do that? I'm gonna do it right here. So I'm gonna take a minute to tidy this up, and then we're gonna all plate together, and then we're all gonna enjoy. Alrighty. So here we go. I'm going to take this so you can see everything that I'm doing. Put the mic in there. Cool. Beauty. First comes my stuffing. It's gorgeous. Nice and golden brown. Next comes my squash, which I'm just gonna glaze one more time with the butter. It's now perfectly done. So there's my squash. It's looking really pretty. I'm gonna grab my pecans and I'm just gonna put them on top. I'm gonna grab my little bit of goat cheese. And I'm gonna crumble it on top as well. Then I'm gonna grab my green beans. I'm gonna put these right next to my squash because these are my sides. I'm plating this one up family style for you guys. And do you see what I mean by an emulsified sauce? Look at that green bean sauce. You would think that the water and the butter would split, but it hasn't. It's like a lovely sauce. So I'm gonna just pour that on top. Maybe pour a little bit on my squash as well. Beautiful. So there's my sides. I have my cranberry sauce. That goes there. And I have my gravy. Which goes here. I'm gonna put my pie out as well. And now I'm gonna do my turkey. So I'm gonna grab my my serving plate. I'm gonna do a little toss of my turkey confit. I'm gonna put that on the bottom, almost like it's a bed for the rest of my turkey roulade. This is just perfect. I'm gonna take a little taste. I cut my roulade, I fanned it out, I placed it on top of my lovely turkey confit, which I hope you guys have tasted by now because it's so good. I'm gonna grab some of this turkey gravy and I'm gonna pour it on top. Do you want to take a video? Ready? Oh yeah, and around. Beautiful. And there you have it, folks. That's a full Thanksgiving dinner. Little bougie, which we love. I hope you guys enjoy it tonight. I sure will. Probably too much food for two people, but at Elle Cuisine, we like to go big or go home. Do you mind pulling it up so they can see my face now as I say goodbye? Okay, like you might want to see me as I say goodbye. I hope you guys had a great time. I hope you guys get to eat this food while it's hot. I hope you have lots of leftovers. And I hope you check us out at ellecuisine.ca. Thanks to Selby. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for being so gung-ho and for signing on. I really, really appreciate that. So Selby residents, many thanks. And many thanks to TL Insiders as well. And for Chantel and Dustin, who are my go-to TL Insiders. They're the ones that really organize all of this wonderful content for you guys to enjoy. And they are my champions. So thank you. And thanks to everyone. I hope you guys enjoy. It's even better than the gnocchi. How is that possible? My gnocchi is the best. But yes, no, I agree. Nothing beats Thanksgiving dinner. That's the thing. All of these flavors should be just like what you remember. They should bring you back to a moment in time. That's why I love to cook. That's why what I love about food is that it makes you feel something, whether it's nostalgia or like you've gotten a big hug. Food is wonderful. So it brings people together just like we've gotten together tonight. So thanks again, guys. And I hope you guys sign on to another. And watch out for us. And happy friggin' Thanksgiving, because I think we all need to give more thanks because, you know, we're all pretty lucky to be living where we are and grateful enough to be enjoying this kind of meal. So thanks, guys. Happy Thanksgiving.